President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi underwent the medical examination required to run for presidency. Al-Sisi's checkup comes after he announced that he intends to run for a third term in December's presidential elections. In order to qualify for the elections, candidates must receive the endorsements from 20 MPs or 25,000 citizens across at least 15 governorates, with at least 1,000 endorsements from each governorate. This will be the fourth presidential election since the 25th of January uprising in 2022. Head of the presidential candidate Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's electoral campaign, Councillor Mahmoud Fawzi, talked to reporters in a press conference detailing some of the features of the coming period ahead of the elections due next December. Councillor Fawzi added that the campaign will announce the president's vision on the economy in the coming stage. Fawzi called on all the media outlets to be committed with an objective coverage during the whole electoral process. Head of the presidential campaign pointed out that the state is keen on holding the elections in a democratic atmosphere. He told the reporters that the presidential candidate, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, will seek to complete his achievements if he wins. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received phone calls from the Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani and the French counterpart Emmanuel Macron as the leaders discussed the last developments in the Palestinian occupied territories. Presidential spokesperson Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that the head of state stressed that Egypt is intensifying the contacts with both the Palestinian and the Israeli sides, as well as the regional and the international powers to contain the current situation.
A Sudani presidential spokesman, Councillor Ahmed Fahmy, said the talks covered a number of regional and international files of common concern. He said that they also discussed ongoing efforts to boost closer cooperation between the two countries at the economic and political levels, primarily by strengthening existing mechanisms including the tripartite cooperation with Jordan and through the Baghdad Conference on Economic Integration and Regional Stability. Also on Saturday, President Sisi received another phone call from his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron as both leaders discussed the latest developments in the Palestinian occupied territories. Cairo has historically been a key mediator in conflicts between Israel and the Palestinians. Councillor Fahmy said the Arab state stressed that Egypt is intensifying its contacts with both the Palestinian and Israeli sides, as well as regional and international powers to contain the current situation. President Sisi warned against more escalation, which would lead to a humanitarian crisis and drag the region to a violent, vicious circle threatening regional peace and stability. Fahmy added that the two presidents expressed worries regarding the fast, dangerous pace of violence, calling for self-restraint and putting an end to the bloodshed.
Earlier spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that President al-Sisi followed up on the situation in the occupied territories and its developments in light of the current violence. From the Strategic Crisis Management Center, the head of state gave his directives to intensify the Egyptian contacts to contain this situation. Palestinian group Hamas launched a surprise attack against Israel, firing thousands of rockets from Gaza and sending ground units as Israel retaliated with airstrikes, killing nearly 230 Palestinians. Israel said it is now at war with Hamas and launched airstrikes in Gaza, vowing to inflict an unprecedented price. Israel's National Rescue Service said that at least 200 people were killed and more than 1,000 wounded, making it the deadliest attack in Israel in years. On the other side, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said that at least 230 people in the Gaza Strip have been killed in Israel's retaliation and at least 1,610 were wounded. Egypt warned against the serious repercussions of the ongoing escalation between the Palestinian and the Israeli sides in the aftermath of the series of attacks against the Palestinian cities. In a statement by the Foreign Ministry, Egypt called for exercising maximum self-restraint to avoid the bloodshed and protect the lives. The statement noted that Egypt has urged the active parties internationally that are involved in supporting efforts to resume peacemaking to immediately intervene to stop the ongoing escalation. In this context, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held a phone call with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs Josep Borrell, warning of grave consequences from the escalation. Shoukry also made a series of calls, including to his counterparts in the United States, Russia, Turkey, Germany, France and Spain, in an attempt to rally international actors to intervene immediately. He received a call from the American Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, to discuss the international and the regional efforts that must be undertaken to contain the situation and put an end to the violence and the loss of life. Shoukry and the Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov stressed the need for an immediate stop to the escalations ahead of the emergency UN Security Council meeting on Sunday. The top diplomat also held phone talks with the Jordanian, Emirati and the French counterparts, discussing ways to contain the current crisis. The world had reacted to the surprise of the biggest attack by Hamas on Israel in years. The details follow.
The ongoing escalation in the Palestinian-occupied territories. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said that the Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves against the terror of Jewish settlers and occupation troops. Saudi Foreign Minister called for an immediate cessation of violence. The United Arab Emirates called for the exercise of maximum restraint and an immediate ceasefire to avoid serious repercussions. Qatar's Foreign Ministry said Israel alone was responsible for the ongoing escalation of violence with the Palestinian people and called for both sides to show restraint. UN Middle East Peace Envoy Tar Winsland said that this is a dangerous precipice and appealed to all sides to pull back from the brink. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen and Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell unequivocally condemned the attack by Hamas against Israel, describing it as terrorism in its most despicable form. The White House National Security spokesman said the U.S. unequivocally condemns the attack and stands with Israel, while U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that over the coming days the Department of Defense will work to ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself and protect civilians from indiscriminate violence and terrorism. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Italian Prime Minister's office condemned the attacks by Hamas and said they stand by Israel. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogadanov said Russia is in contact with Israel, the Palestinians and the Arab countries over the escalation and urged restraint. French President Emmanuel Macron strongly condemned the attacks and expressed full solidarity with the victims and their families and those close to them. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for restraint from all parties, and Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson praised the operation, noting that they will continue to support the Palestinians.
Meanwhile, the United Nations and the local investigators search for answers at the site of a Russian missile strike on a small Ukrainian village that killed nearly 52 people. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the representatives from the United Nations monitoring mission in Ukraine spent much of the day speaking with the local residents and survivors in Hroza. Elsewhere, the local authorities reported a pro-Kremlin politician in Ukraine's Russian-occupied south died of his injuries after his car was blown up. Turkish forces have killed 58 Kurdish militants in northern Syria in the overnight attacks on the militant targets as conflict in the region escalated nearly a week after a bomb attack in Ankara. Turkish Defense Ministry said that all the targets belonging to the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK militia and the Syrian Kurdish YPG militia were legitimate targets for the forces after the PKK claimed responsibility for Sunday's bombing in Ankara. Interior Minister said that the police in the province of Van had captured 6 people suspected of the PKK links and in preparation of an attack. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli witnessed the ceremony of launching the ISASCO Year of Youth, organized by the Organization of the Islamic Educational, Scientific and the Cultural Organization, the ISASCO, in cooperation with the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research at the new administrative capital. The details follow.
On behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli participated in a ceremony of launching ISASCO Year for Youth, organized by the Organization of Islamic Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, ISASCO, in cooperation with the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in the new administrative capital. The ceremony started with a documentary on the ISASCO activities, followed by a speech by the General Manager of the organization, Dr. Salim El-Malik, and a documentary on the state's efforts to support the youth. Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Ayman Ashur, said that the celebration includes a number of important files, among them the ISASCO's vision in the field of building capabilities of youth in the Islamic world, in addition to efforts by Egyptian states in supporting and empowering youth in the era of President Sisi, in addition to backing innovators and inventors. Dr. Madbouli stressed that President Sisi put issues of youth on top priority. Addressing the ceremony for launching the ISASCO's year, Madbouli referred that the President is always keen on showing his great appreciation to the youth role in developmental renaissance that is happening currently in Egypt, and his keenness on merging them in political, economic and social fields.
A magnitude 6.3 earthquake hit western Afghanistan, killing 15 and injuring dozens more, as the officials predicting the toll could rise after reports of landslides and victims trapped under the collapsed buildings. The United States Geological Survey said that the epicenter was 40 kilometers northwest of the region's largest city, Herat, and was followed by 7 aftershocks with magnitudes between 4.6 and 6.3. Crowds of residents fled the buildings in the city as the quakes began, lasting just under 3 hours. The world of business and economy is up next. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli holds an inspection tour in the new administrative capital. Cooperation Minister and the French counterpart tackle promoting ties with the development partners. And Vladimir Putin launches the Russian gas shipments to Uzbekistan. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held an inspection tour in the new administrative capital, accompanied with the Minister of Housing, Asim Al-Ghazzar, and a number of top executives. The details follow. In his remarks after his tour in the new administrative capital, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that 7 years ago this place was a desert, as the state built this smart city based on plans made by the economic and the social researchers. The Prime Minister hailed the achievements realized on the ground and the hundreds of thousands of job opportunities afforded. He asserted that the Central Business Zone will be a hub, attracting the international companies to invest in the Egyptian markets. Madbouli highlighted that in a few months, the business zone will be one of the icons of the NAC, stressing that the new administrative capital will enjoy a number of unique projects built for the sake of the upcoming generations. Madbouli met with a number of citizens who booked units in one of the urban communities and others who already moved to the NAC. He toured several districts and made sure himself that the pace of work is running according to time schedules. On top of the list was the new Garden City suburb, which is characterized by the unique architecture, reviving the style of the old one in downtown Cairo. He pointed to the state's keenness to build all the urban districts with vast green yards, pedestrian corridors and kids areas to ensure the excellent quality of life for the residents. The Prime Minister confirmed that the coming period will witness field visits to the national mega projects to follow up on the pace of work in all of them. During her visit to France to attend the Green Finance and Investment Forum organized by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Minister of International Cooperation Rania Al-Mashat met with the Minister of State of International Cooperation of France in light of the efforts to strengthen the joint relations with the multilateral and the bilateral development partners. The two ministers discussed the global economic scene and the successive developments as a result of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis and the corona pandemic. The meeting also tackled the results of the Paris summit for a new global financial pact. The government's plan to succeed in increasing the number of tourists arriving in Egypt to reach 7 million tourists during the first half of the year has gained its fruits. The month of April alone recorded the largest number in terms of receiving tourists, reaching 1.3 million tourists. The government aims to increase the number of tourists to 80 million tourists during the year 2024 to rise to 30 million by 2028.